You can listen to The Professional Left wherever you get your podcasts, on Netroots Radio, or at our website, proleftpod.com, where you can also contribute to this podcast. There's a PayPal button at our website, or you can mail us a letter and or contribution at P.O. Box 9133, Springfield, Illinois, 62791.
This is the podcast for the week of March 28th, 2025. It's not safe for work.
Recorded live from the Cornfield Resistance, where Monday I will be celebrating my 20th year blogging in this place. So expect a fundraiser over at my blog. It's The Professional Left with Driftglass and Blue Gal.
Congratulations, Driftglass.
Thank you, darling.
And you have not made the move to Substack. So
no.
Folks need to support you and the 20 years that you've been at
I'm expecting
the coal face. Is that what we say?
I'm expecting an invitation from Rumble any day now. Any day.
Don Jr. wants you.
Look, man, how much is it going to take to shut you up?
Uh-huh.
Well, considerable amount, Don. A considerable amount.
Yeah. Today, in a very special episode of No Fair Remembering Stuff, we're going to talk about a very prominent Republican cabinet official who is in deep trouble over a big scandal.
Okay, Jimmy, roll the tape.
No, sir, I don't remember where that conversation took place. I don't recall either. I have no recollection of knowing when that occurred. I don't recall the specific mention of this conversation. I don't recall Mr. Senator. I don't recall any dissent. I don't recall, and I don't recall whether it was Mr. Mercer who presented me the number. There are two that I do not recall knowing in my mind. Senator, I don't recall in connection with this review process.
Damn it, Jimmy. We're going to fire that kid because that's the wrong audio. That's Alberto Gonzales. And that's just a few of the over 50 I don't recalls he said during testimony before the Senate Judiciary Committee over the firing of 8 U.S. attorneys in 2007. So try again, Jimmy.
At the time, Mr. Witkoff was actually in Russia during this chat discussion, was he not?
I was not aware of that.
Was he on his personal phone at the time?
I don't know.
Well, it's my understanding that he was indeed in Russia. Director Gabbard, you were also traveling during this discussion, correct?
Yes.
And where were you?
I was traveling through the Asia-Pacific region. I don't recall which country I was in at that time.
You don't remember the country?
I'd have to go back and look at the schedule.
1 day later.
But, Director, you didn't, prior to yesterday's Senate, you were on the signal chat, correct?
No.
Okay, but did you review the material on the signal chat?
No, I wasn't on it.
Director Gabbard?
Yes, Ranking Member. My answer yesterday was based on my recollection, or the lack thereof, on the details that were posted there. I was not, and what was shared today reflects the fact that I was not directly involved with that part of the signal chat and replied at the end reflecting the effects, the very brief effects that the National Security Advisor had shared.
So it's your testimony that less than 2 weeks ago, you were on a signal chat that had all of this information about F-18s and MQ-9 Reapers and targets on strike, and you in that 2-week period simply forgot that was there. That's your testimony?
My testimony is I did not recall the exact details of what was included there.
That was not your testimony. Your testimony was that you were not aware of anything related to weapons packages, targets, and timing.
So I guess we're going with I was barely there, I don't remember anything, and hey, it wasn't even classified anyway. And Jimmy, as long as we have that other scandal all queued up, remind us what the big deal was with Alberto Gonzales.
Well, I'm not Jimmy, but I'm standing in for Jimmy.
We fired Jimmy. Jimmy's already fired.
That's it. Jimmy has been sacked.
He's been doged, okay? He's been doged.
He's been doged. Mm-hmm. And now, I'm gonna talk about the moose bit my sister once.
Moose's nose wiped by, that's right.
Yep. Okay, but look, this is from Wikipedia. Quote, on December 7th, 2006, the George W. Bush administration's Department of Justice ordered the midterm dismissal of 7 United States attorneys. Congressional investigations focused on whether the Department of Justice and the White House were using the U.S. attorney positions for political advantage. The allegations were that some of the attorneys were targeted for dismissal to impede investigations of Republican politicians or that some were targeted for their failure to initiate investigations that would damage Democratic politicians or hamper Democratic-leaning voters. The U.S. attorneys were replaced with interim appointees under provisions in the 2005, say it with me now, USA Patriot Act reauthorization, unquote.
That's right. It was weaponizing the United States justice system to advantage Republicans, damage Democratic politicians, and hamper Democratic-leaning voters. Wow. Just like the Trump administration.
Yep.
Except, of course, this was during the before time. The Republicans still had to pretend to have principles and act like they had the capacity to feel shame when they got caught.
Right. And so, again, from Wikipedia, quote, by mid-September 2007, 9 senior staff of the Department of Justice associated with the controversy had resigned, including Attorney General Alberto Gonzales and assorted deputies and associates. Hey, wait a minute. That was during the last Republican businessman presidency, wasn't it?
It was.
George W. Bush, remember him? Touted by Republicans as the MBA president, Masters in Business Administration, Rick Glass. He's a businessman. He knows how to run things.
He knew the art of the deal, Blue Gal.
This is from a Public Administration Review article from July-August 2010 entitled The Triumph of Loyalty Over Competence, the Bush Administration, and the Exhaustion of the Politicized Presidency.
And you just love me for digging this up, don't you?
I do. I love you for digging this up. But look, we don't have time to read the whole white paper here.
No. It's out there.
The executive summary is worth noting. Quote, the most important administrative aspect of the George W. Bush presidency was not its formal management reform agenda. I know that shocks a lot of you. The most important administrative aspect of the George W. Bush presidency was its attempt to extend the politicized presidency. Efforts to assert tighter political control of the federal bureaucracy, revived during the Ronald Reagan administration, were pursued to an extreme under Bush. Loyalty triumphed over competence in selection, and political goals displaced rationality in decision-making. However, the strategy of politicization undermined the Bush administration's own policy goals, as well as its broader agenda to restore the strength of the institutional presidency, unquote. That's also the difference between Bush and Trump.
Yeah.
Is Bush administration actually had policy goals.
Yeah.
Besides tax cuts for billionaires.
Yeah. One or two of them were good. One or two of them were good. The rest were horrible, but they actually had articulable policy goals that were written about.
Policy goals. They had a platform. Yeah. They had their convention had a platform.
Right.
Yeah.
So other than that, in every meaningful way, the George W. Bush administration was, in fact, a beta test for the Trump administration.
Mm-hmm.
What Trump now does loudly and crudely and with snarling racism, and to the horror of recently former conservative pundits, I might add, Bush and Cheney were doing behind closed doors with presentable public faces while being eagerly abetted by those same conservative pundits. Now, this is from The American Prospect, December 11th, 2008. It runs a little bit long. We've cut it down considerably, but notice how literally everything Trump is doing now, Bush was doing back then. Quote, how Bush broke the government. You know how these are all these little checks and balances in the government, says Rick Perlstein, author of Nixonland, The Rise of a President and the Fracturing of America. Under the Bush administration, all that was turned on its head. When you look at what they did, it's like reading the opposite of the Federalist Papers. Despite the fact, I know, and Rick Perlstein has a way with words. Despite the fact that Alexander Hamilton clearly articulated that there should be checks on presidential power, especially in a time of war, the Bush administration selectively interpreted the Federalist Papers to claim that Congress has no right to restrict the president. Government lawyers such as John Yoo, who worked in the Justice Department's Office of Legal Counsel, went so far as to assert that Hamilton's view of executive unity allows for a supercharged executive branch with unlimited power. Some of Bush's power grabs made national news. Unaccountable military contractors in Iraq and Ideological shenanigans at the Justice Department were front-page headlines. Sound familiar? However, to gain a true sense of Bush's legacy, we must look beyond these individual transgressions and examine how the administration employed politically motivated strategies throughout the federal government with devastating results. In other words, to understand what happened to government under the Bush administration, we must look at the methods that were used to break it down. These methods, which included everything from meddling with scientific research to get desired results, to appointing former lobbyists to watchdog positions, were not, of course, all directly supervised by Bush, Vice President Dick Cheney, or other high-level officials. They were often carried out by an array of lower-level officials, many of whom were political appointees, all of whom were operating in the same climate of secrecy and working for a government that condoned and encouraged attempts to expand the reach of the executive branch and its political agenda. God, this all sounds familiar.
Mm-hmm.
During the Bush years, administration officials would repeatedly call for a review of the literature of a subject until they got the desired interpretations. They would ask scientists to show proof that a policy they opposed would cause damage to the environment, or the reverse, that a policy they supported would not hurt the environment. When the facts flew in the face of the Bush agenda, the administration told its agencies to get new facts. Now, of course, Trump just cuts out the middleman and just makes shit up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Many of the Bush administration's tactics that changed government policy were executed in ways that received little or no oversight. Whether by drawing up legal memos or making procedural changes, officials put forth a roster of regulations that dramatically altered the federal agencies without going to Congress. As anti-tax crusader Grover Norquist once said, personnel is policy. Now pay really close attention to this one. The Bush administration certainly took that to heart, enforcing uniformity and keeping employees in line by taking pains to hire underqualified political allies and by firing workers, even party loyalists, who dared to disagree or otherwise cause trouble. When the Bush administration couldn't change the personnel or meddle in the mission of a specific agency, it had only one recourse: cut the purse strings. Doge. Just as the administration rewarded its faith-based programs with ample federal funds, it made cuts in areas that ran counter to its ideology. Unquote.
And then it all fell apart. Hurricane Katrina wasn't enough. Terry Schiavo wasn't enough. Torture revelations were definitely not enough. Scum like Hannity and Limbaugh celebrated it. Even Iraq falling apart probably wasn't enough. And by the way, Hannity still insists that there are WMDs somewhere,
out there. Yeah.
Saddam Hussein hid them in Syria, took them to a foreign country and hid his WMDs. It took all of that plus the collapse of the world economy, which makes it personal to everybody.
Right.
Under that MBA president to finally break the brains of the Republican base. And that's why you have those Obama-Trump voters.
Yeah.
There it was right in front of them every day, irrefutable proof that everything they believed was bullshit and everyone they had trusted had lied to them because they're such gullible chumps. They could have had their moment of clarity. They could have repented, atoned, apologized to those of us who tried to warn them. They could have tried to figure out where they had been led astray. But they didn't do any of that because a Republican would rather die 1,000 painful deaths than ever admit they had been wrong, and us America-hating, terrorist-loving libtards had been right. And that's the change that has happened under Trump, too, which is we liberals are done.
Yeah.
And we are burning the lifeboats.
We are.
And calling out any news organization that attempts to forgive these voters for what they've done.
Well, and that last little bit there, even most of our staunchest never Trump friends will not admit that liberals were right about anything.
No.
They just are congenitally unable to admit that they were wrong. This all just happened spontaneously in 2016, and that they'd been warned and they'd ignored it because that screws up their whole gig. So instead, as I wrote 16 very long years ago, this was all the way back in 2009, like German soldiers after the fall of Berlin, they've stopped running away from the catastrophe they created only long enough to burn their uniforms.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of changing their ways and waking the fuck up, they got themselves some stupid hats and little flags and started calling themselves the Tea Party. Definitely not Republicans. No, no, no. No, sir. They were independents, right, Blue Gal? Independent.
I'm an independent.
They were all independents. They were independent, constitutional, conservative, originalists, or whatever. And instead of learning from the catastrophe they had created, they threw themselves into the arms of any crackpot who would tell them that none of this had been their fault and that everyone should just forget the entire Bush administration anyway, because this scary new black guy named Obama was 1,000,000 times worse than any president ever. So they embraced sleazy con men like Glenn Beck.
Who needs to learn what here? This president, I think, has exposed himself as a guy over and over and over again who has a deep-seated hatred for white people or the white culture. I don't know what it is.
And dead scumbag Andrew Breitbart, who is speaking here at CPAC in 2012. Please note the reaction of the crowd to him speaking.
And so what do we get now in Barack Obama? Well, I've got videos, by the way. This election, we're going to vet him. I've got videos. This election, we're going to vet him from his college days to show you why racial division and class warfare are central to what Hope and Change was sold in 2008.
And of course, they fell madly in love with the snarling, racist king of the birthers.
He could have been born in Kenya and gone over to the United States, and everybody wants to be a U.S. citizen.
In fact, they loved him enough to nominate him for president and put him on the debate stage next to Hillary Rodham Clinton.
I will let you respond. It's important, but I just want to get the answer here. The birth certificate was produced in 2011. You continued to tell the story and question the president's legitimacy in 2012, 13, 14, 15, as recently as January. So the question is, what changed your mind?
Well, nobody was pressing it. Nobody was caring much about it. I figured you'd ask the question tonight, of course, but nobody was caring much about it. But I was the one that got him to produce the birth certificate, and I think I did a good job.
Hillary Clinton absolutely wiped the floor with Donald Trump, but it didn't matter because the Republican base had learned the most important lesson of all, that if they locked arms and screamed loud enough through their hate radio and Fox News megaphones, they could make legacy media go along with them in pretending the Bush administration kind of sort of never happened, and that Republican base voters weren't really responsible for anything they said and did, and that Republican lies about Obama being churned out by Fox News and hate radio were all legitimate news stories, and that lockstep Republican congressional obstruction and sabotage was actually Obama's fault because Obama refuses to lead.
Why won't he lead, Blue Gal? Why won't Obama lead?
And that's the power of lying en masse and an ignorant racist mob that demands to be lied to. Draws con men and demagogues and grifters like shit draws flies. And now we have the king of shit mountain as president of the United States again.
Yeah. And now we have a genuine scandal that ticks every box of every issue Republicans swore up and down, these latest iteration of Republicans swore up and down they cared about. National security, handling classified materials, her emails, transparency, competence, Elon Musk, and freedom of speech. Got to have that freedom of speech, Blue Gal. And the reaction from MAGA land has been uniform and entirely predictable. Now, from MAGA Twitter, I picked out a small representative sample from literally thousands of identical reactions. So let's start with Carolyn Leavitt, who you might know is the actual White House press secretary. Quote, "The Atlantic has conceded these were not, capital letters, war plans," which they definitely were. "This entire story was another hoax written by a Trump hater who is well-known for his sensationalist spin," unquote.
This was followed by some mope named Cece, who got hundreds of enthusiastic responses. Quote, "Why isn't anyone calling out Jeffrey Goldberg from The Atlantic for not announcing himself when he landed on a private signal call he wasn't meant to join, huh? Journalistic ethics demand transparency, but he stayed quiet, copied the text and published them to the world, all to make the Trump administration look bad. Where's the outrage over a reporter exploiting it for a hit piece? The focus stays on the mistake, not his ethical lapse. Why?"
This is followed by Katagurama. Quote, "He should be hauled in for questioning and his devices seized for analysis, unquote.
Gary D., was it just a setup to create a media firestorm asking for a friend?
Sweet P. Bell, he is unethical and out for the big story.
Janet 148-953-4061, definitely not a bot. It was planned, capital P, planned.
Real Red SD, he should be facing punishment.
At EJGSH, they were counting on him being a piece of garbage.
Jay Nada, he's a radical douchebag, and the Atlantic is an all-caps propaganda rag.
Another non-bot, HJ4719125173895, says, maybe he is a spy guilty of treason.
I think that's his prison number, honey. This is from S. Sergeant Mark, USMC, my shiny metal ass. Quote, I really think he should be charged with sedition or espionage. He knew he was going to be on that. He did unexpectedly land on it. It was arranged. We need to find who arranged it, charge them for treason, and charge him for sedition, unquote. All of these people, all the ones I read, all the ones I've heard of, they're all speaking the same language. They're all marching in the same direction. It's deny, deny, deny. Except at this point, the base doesn't know which lie to tell. And conservative media hasn't reached a consensus on which lie to tell them to tell. So they're putting out a buffet table of a dozen different contradictory lies and letting the base play choose your own lying adventure until they figure out which one works best. This is from Axios. The MAGA media ecosystem has splintered into a series of competing theories to try to explain away the scandal. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter which lie or lies they settle on, as long as it accomplishes two objectives. Very important. Number one, their dear leader and his people are blameless. And number two, somehow some liberal somewhere has to be pulling the strings and to be blamed for this.
Mm-hmm.
However, we can tell you this. Neither of us had quoting Frederick Heigl on our bingo card as part of this mad scramble for the perfect lie. But guess what? It has happened.
Yep. We're going Hegelian.
We're going total Hegelian. So strap in, kids. Uh-huh.
But for that story, we have to back up just a bit and check in to see how poor old Jeff Bezos is doing with that little newsletter of his.
Uh-huh.
And right off the bat, we find that 3 headlines at 3 different media outlets are all telling the same story. From Fox News, quote, Trump claims Bezos fretted to him about out-of-control people at Washington Post. President Trump said in a new interview he was optimistic about his working relationship with Jeff Bezos, as well as the future of the Washington Post, claiming Bezos had even disparaged the newspaper's staffers to him. They actually did a couple of bad articles on him, Bezos, Trump said in an interview with Outkick's Clay Travis. He said, this is crazy. I lose my fortune running this thing, and they, Post newsroom employees, you know, they're out of control. These people are crazy. They're crazy people. They're out of control. That's what Donald Trump said.
And this is from The Hill. Quote, Trump, Bezos, a good guy, trying to be more fair with Washington Post coverage. I think it's great, Trump told conservative commentator Clay Travis of Outkick during an interview aboard Air Force One this weekend. At length, I talked to him about it. He's a good guy. I didn't really know him in the first term. I mean, it's such a difference between now and the first time, unquote. And finally, from the New York Post, quote, Trump claims Jeff Bezos complained to him about out-of-control Washington Post staffers. They're crazy people. They actually did a couple of bad articles on him, Bezos, Trump said in an interview with Outkick's Clay Travis, unquote. All 3 headlines, but none of the media involved none of the media outlets involved did any of the original reporting. They're all citing the same source. Trump talking to Clay Travis of Outkick during an interview aboard Air Force One. So, you and me, Blue Gal, let's go there.
Yeah, because this is just lazy.
This is about conservative media and how it works.
And it's about conservative media, and it's about Outkick, which Donald Trump was very happy to grant an interview to Outkick.
Uh-huh.
So I'm going to read this like the person that wrote it. Let me put it that way, or the AI that wrote it. Clay Travis is the founder of the fastest growing national multimedia platform Outkick. that produces and distributes engaging content across sports and pop culture to millions of fans across the country. Outkick was created by Travis in 2011 and sold to the Fox Corporation in 2021. One of the most electrifying and outspoken personalities in the industry, Travis hosts Outkick the Show, where he provides his unfiltered opinion on the most compelling headlines throughout sports, culture, and politics. He also makes regular appearances on Fox News Media as a contributor, providing analysis on a variety of subjects ranging from sports news to the cultural landscape, unquote.
Yeah. This is about a fully integrated, massive media ecosystem. And so here's more about Outkick. Quote, he and Buck Sexton host the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show, a 3-hour weekday conservative talk show which debuted, Blue Gal, on June 21st of 2021 as the replacement of the Rush Limbaugh show on many radio stations, unquote. Continuity. So important in not making the mob of MAGA meatheads unruly or angry or frightened.
Yep. And sure enough, for decades, from 11 to 2 every day, you could find Rush Limbaugh or one of his lackeys on local radio station WMAY right here in Springfield, Illinois. But look, Limbaugh is dead now. Dead and buried in what we believe may have become the largest impromptu public urinal in St. Louis, Missouri. So now, where once you would find Limbaugh, you can listen to Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show right here in Springfield, Illinois on WMAY. And on any of hundreds of other radio stations across the country, because the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show is part of a national syndication package so that hundreds of thousands of Republican base voters are all hearing the same message at the same time.
Very important. So, what's on before and after this guy? Well, as part of that syndication package, before them on WMAY from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m., you'll find Fox News' own Brian Kilmeade. Surprise, surprise, surprise. After them, from 2 to 4, comes The Dana Show, and that's Dana Loesch. And after her, for 3 more hours, is The Eric Erickson Show. But wait, there's more, Blue Gal. There's always more. Within the Kick platform itself, you will find Outkick Show with Clay Travis, which is not a surprise. But you'll also find 13 other shows. There are gambling tips, there's sports news, there's politics and culture with Tommy Lahren. Isn't that exciting?
Dan Dakich has a show called Don't At Me, and he is billed as an American basketball sportscaster. He's a former player, assistant coach, interim head coach for the Indiana Hoosiers, and an American basketball player. But here he was on Twitter yesterday. NPR's Catherine Marr admits outlet failed to cover Hunter Biden laptop.
Yeah.
So all the basketball stuff that he's supposedly the expert in, don't sip the Kool-Aid because it's poisoned with Hunter Biden laptop crap.
Yeah, and all the rest of it. All the talking points are there.
Yeah.
There's the Ricky Cobb Show, Blue Gal. And here's the blurb from that show. Ricky Cobb will offer fans that magical blend of insight and humor into current sports topics, along with his deep passion for sports, culture, and humor from the 70s and 80s. Oh, maybe he loves Mork and Mindy. I don't know. Recent topics were, let's see, what were his recent topics? Tesla terrorists attempt to go mainstream. Oh, that's very exciting. Tim Walz fans the Tesla and Elon hate. And DEI officially done at Disney. Are there any masculine Democrats? Unquote.
And then there's Gaines for Girls with Riley Gaines. Her blurb is, Riley Gaines has emerged as one of the most powerful voices in the fight to save women's sports and spaces. But the fight is far from over. And here's 3 episodes of Gaines for Girls with Riley Gaines from last year. She was failed for using biological woman, protecting the integrity of women's sports with Tommy Tuberville, and Josh Hawley confronts NCAA about trans athletes in women's sports. So that's all she's doing.
Yeah.
Is just fanning that trans stuff.
Yeah, and this is the shit that your crazy Uncle Liberty is listening to.
It's not just crazy Uncle Liberty, though.
No, that's true.
It's people of Junior Dude's age.
Right. That's
it's
right.
26-year-old men who don't have a girlfriend, who are lonely and have nothing to do or drive to work, and they listen to this crap, and they think they're listening for sports and tips on betting and video game content. In the meantime, they're getting, by the way, Democrats want to turn you gay and hurt your sisters who are in sports by putting a man in the locker room with them.
That's right. And there aren't even any Democrats who are masculine. So, the field is wide open. You're being robbed.
You think you're a Democrat, you better get looked at because you might be a girl.
You might just check down there and make sure it still works down there.
Right.
Fox 59 sexy sports anchor and reporter Charlie Arnault now has her own show. Recent episodes include Doge Superstar with a big yellow arrow pointing to her. Have any woke companies actually bounced back? The woke push to keep men in women's sports. Canadian sports fans continue to boo the U.S. national anthem. And can men in women's sports have enough impact to flip Democrats?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And just a couple more. The latest episode of Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow is no woke basketball. Fox News' Tyrus has his own place there. Recent episode, Can Wrestling Save America from Divisive Politics? Well, that divisive politics is very controversial, Driftglass.
It's very controversial. We need to save ourselves from the divisiveness of controversial topics.
Yeah. So let's do wrestling.
Let's do wrestling. And then there's the Will Cain show. That would be Fox News' own Will Cain. Now, are you noticing a pattern here?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The lead sentence coming out of Will Cain's mouth on his show yesterday was, and I'm quoting, "Why are women so woke?"
So, I know the answer to that one.
So there's your answer, young incels, as to why you're not getting laid. It's that they've been infected with the woke mind virus and won't have sex with you unless you agree to cut your penis off and drink soy milk. So sorry, guys. I guess you're out of luck. Then it was on to the so-called war plans with lots of scowling and air quotes around everything. Then he brought on some obscure visiting professor named Gad Saad from Northwood University, who blathered on about two French philosophers who wrote books about how human reasoning didn't evolve to find the truth, but just to win arguments. And this somehow proves that Jeffrey Goldberg clearly wrote his Atlantic article just to hurt Republicans.
Mm-hmm.
I'm quoting Professor God Sad now. He's not a true journalist. He's not pursuing objective truth. He simply wants to win his team to win an argument by making the other team look bad, unquote. For the record, since I did the research, we try to bring all of this to you, all of the work. We try to do all the homework. Northwood University is, quote, a private university focused on business education, unquote. Its most popular undergraduate majors, according to a 2021 record, are things like business administration and management, marketing management, vehicle and vehicle parts and accessories marketing operations, and sports fitness administration management. So I personally have no fucking idea what a visiting philosophy professor has to do there, except whatever he does leaves him a lot of spare time to show up on the Will Cain show when summoned. And here's some late-breaking news about Gad Saad on Twitter just this morning at 11:40. Quote, "My appearance tonight on Jesse Waters is going to be rescheduled to another day." Unquote. Oh, so he's that guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then we're off to the races. And as promised, no kidding, Hegelianism. Sweeping big word musings on what even is knowledge? How do people know anything? How can anyone really know how anything works? All of which amounted to nothing but a pile of big smarty pants words from a real philosopher to reassure the MAGA meatheads that they're really the smart ones. And the Signal scandal is really some kind of liberal plot against the dear leader.
Mm-hmm. For the record, today's top essays on Outkick are Some Environmentalists Could Give a Rip About the Environment by Tomi Lahren, noted environmentalist Tomi Lahren. And then two articles by Ian Miller, Trump pokes fun at reporter for still wearing a mask, and yes, red state voters helped tank Snow White box office. And you know who advertises on Outkick, Driftglass? Mm-hmm. Everybody.
Everybody. In fact,
because there's an audience there.
Going there this morning just to do this deep, deep dive for you people. I might have missed the crucial 99th Lifetime episode about Gypsy Rose life after lockup if I hadn't been over there looking around. And look, this was season 2, episode 99, the unseen footage. My completion would have been incomplete had I not been reminded that the 99th episode, unseen footage, was now available.
The things Driftglass puts through his head.
I know.
For the audience. But this is the universe in which MAGA Republicans live all day, every day now. This is what's on their radio in their cars. It's safe there. It's reassuring. And the bargain they've made with their media is that their eternal financial and electoral loyalty in exchange for protecting them from ever feeling stupid or wrong. Mm-hmm. From Greg Sargent at the New Republic, he wrote, quote, "In Signalgate, Trump world is demonstrating exactly what's wrong with authoritarian populism. Refusal to admit error, walling out of constructive criticism, and the cult-like defense of the leader at all costs," unquote.
Yeah. And just to remind you, this is a very, very profitable business to be in, which is why just down the street, yet another for-profit MAGA propaganda shop is opening for business with some very depressingly familiar faces.
Look who's back from the dead.
This is from The Hollywood Reporter. Quote, "Former Fox News primetime star Megyn Kelly says that she is launching MK Media, a video and audio podcast network that will work with creators and journalists in the news and entertainment space. The first 3 shows will be hosted by journalist and two-way founder, oh my holy mother of God, Mark Halperin."
I want off of this train. I really do.
They've been trying to get him on Morning Joe for a year, 2 years now, and he's just too creepy and awful to be rehabilitated there. So he found another place. Megyn Kelly will hire his ass.
With Megyn Kelly, yeah.
And that will legitimize him enough to get back on whatever the hell he wants to be on.
Or eventually he will be back on Morning Joe.
Sure. If Morning Joe is still extant 6 months from now.
Yeah.
Also, Daily Mail culture columnist Maureen Callahan, and influencer and political commentator Link Lauren, and others will follow, unquote.
Media Matters has the larger picture. The right dominates the online media ecosystem, seeping into sports, comedy, and other supposedly non-political spaces. I think this is so important. A new Media Matters analysis found that 9 out of the 10 top online shows assessed are right-leaning. This analysis was based on 320 online shows with a right-leaning or left-leaning ideological bent. We found that right-leaning online shows dominate the ecosystem, with substantially larger audiences on both politics news shows and supposedly non-political shows that we determined often platformed ideological content or guests, unquote.
Yep. So, as legacy media is slowly dying, and as the conservative media ecosystem continues to expand exponentially, the liberal media, such as it is, seems to be stuck where blogging was in around 2007. You remember 2007, don't you, Blue Gal?
I do.
Yeah. Back then, blogging was exciting and vital, and we were both part of it and felt like we were really making a difference. And some of us are still at it. Who knew? In fact, this Monday, as I might have mentioned, will be the 20th anniversary of my blogging beginning. So again, expect fundraising. But back in 2007, just as it seemed to be coming together for the blogging universe, a handful of A-list bloggers decided that the internet was full. There just wasn't any room for all of us newbies. If you hadn't started blogging in 2002 or 2003 and weren't part of their crew, you should just give up and go elsewhere, do something else. Bake pies, do woodworking, whatever. But you weren't supposed to be a blogger because there's only room for 7 bloggers in the entire fucking universe. And since blog traffic was the lifeblood of blogging and later revenue associated with blogging, this is also right around the time of the infamous Blog Roll Amnesty Day, which some of us remember very fondly and we make fun of every year. That was the day when a handful of A-list bloggers finally got tired of us smelly, lesser blogging monkeys amongst whom they'd been trapped. So they purged their blog rolls of anyone who wasn't them and made sure that they only linked to each other and drove traffic among themselves.
For money.
We're going to create a closed ecosystem with just 7 or 10 of us. Everyone else can go piss up a rope because we don't need you anymore. We're winning now. Barack Obama is going to win. We're going to win forever. We don't need the blogosphere anymore. We just need us few people who will be close on the ground and make money doing this, and everyone else can now go away. And now, as you and I look at the podcasting world that we've been part of for more than 15 years, and we've been around a decade longer than pretty much all the new podcasts that are now dominating the space, it sure looks like that's what's happening with what's left of the liberal media. Mm-hmm. Because increasingly, the centrist, center-right bulwark that was spawned and grown thanks to MSNBC's relentless on-air sponsorship and putting them on the air over and over again every day for the last 5 years or 6 years or 8 years, and the centrist, center-left pod save kids who made it big on the strength of their insider contacts with Barack Obama and Democratic leadership, they're now only talking to themselves and each other. The Signal scandal, or whiskey leaks as some wags have called it, which I really enjoy, may be so bad and have such sprawling implications that the 1/3 of the country that is completely oblivious to everything, pays no attention to politics at all, might actually hear about it as it is spread by word of mouth.
One guy tells another guy something, and then he tells two friends, and they tell two friends, and they tell their friends, and so on, and so on, and so on.
Of course, no one's going to go to jail for this, and given the wall-to-wall corruption and incompetence of the entirely Republican-controlled government, it's likely there'll be no serious investigation. But just imagine if we had a liberal media anywhere near the size and scope and level of message discipline and mutual support as the right has. If we could make this the story for months on end, the way they made Benghazi the story for months on end.
Well,
Hillary's
that's what I was
emails.
going to say. The scandal also this week that 4 American soldiers died in Lithuania, and the president of the United States didn't know anything about it when asked about it.
That's been gossip.
And this whole Signal thing being a runaround around the president, it's obvious that that's what's going on, is that, they're debating what President Trump wants. And then Stephen Miller hops on the chat and says, I know what President Trump wants. It's this. Let's do it.
Right.
And that's a scandal. And then, I'm sorry, but again, 4 soldiers died. And the media did not shut up about Benghazi for years.
Right.
And this is a one-day story. Lithuanian American soldiers dying in Lithuania is a one-day story.
If that.
If that. And so it dovetails very well with this constituent this week. She is Mark Wayne Mullen's constituent, who is really one of the dumbest people. This is from Newshound Ellen at Crooks and Liars. Quote, we should all be furious about the shocking Signalgate negligence, law-breaking, and incompetence at the highest level of the Trump administration. And I just want to take as an aside, all those Twitter wags who were trying to blame Jeffrey Goldberg and call him a seditionist and so forth. They've forgotten that everyone on that Signal chat was breaking the law.
Yeah.
And outed a CIA agent.
Yep.
And laughed over a residential building collapsing because of the bombing, which is a war crime. So negligence, lawbreaking, and incompetence at the highest level of the Trump administration. But Kendall Brown probably has more reasons than most. She says her husband is serving in the military near Yemen, the place that the so-called national security honchos discussed bombing on an unsecure app and with a reporter in the chat. Brown Senator, Republican Mark Wayne Mullen, shrugged off what should have cost every official on the chat their job. Worse, the senator suggested it was a nothing burger in comparison to Hillary Clinton's emails. Apparently, Mullen won't return Brown's calls either. So Brown took to MAGA's favorite social media platform to send Mullen a message. Her Twitter X post has received more than 3.4 million views. Brown posted video as part of her call to Mullen's office, asking an intern to help encourage him to actually be a man and call her back. After informing the intern that she is recording every call to the office, Brown offered further encouragement. And we're going to play this call. Mm-hmm. And as Newshound Ellen said, every single constituent of any member of Congress defending such dreadful derelictions of duty should make similar calls. And here's the phone call.
But I do want to make it very clear, and I hope that you will take down this message and relay it to the senator to help encourage him to actually be a man and make sure that I get a call set up when I reach out to the scheduler. I want you to let him know that if he doesn't reach out to me, I'm recording every single time that I have called his office and left a voicemail or spoke to an intern like you. I am recording all of those. And if I don't hear back from him, I will be sending them to every possible newsroom, both in Oklahoma and nationally, to let them know that the senator is too much of a coward to call back the wife of one of the service members in his constituency that was put at risk. And so help me God, if I have to quit my fucking job to make sure that I can drive to every fucking campaign and public event that the senator has for the rest of his career, I will make it my life's work to destroy his career by making sure that every fucking Oklahoman knows how few fucks he gave about my husband's life and the lives of other active duty service members.
Yes, ma'am. I understand.
Hey, Drift Class, let's do a news roundup.
Okay.
Der Spiegel reporters were able to find the phone numbers, email addresses, and even some passwords belonging to top U.S. officials on public websites, and even found Tulsi Gabbard's Signal profile.
Just sloppy and stupid.
Yep.
This is from Coffee Time News. Quote, "You know it's not going well when your director of national intelligence claims she does not know if she was part of the Signal chat, and literally a few moments later, the director of the CIA, sitting right beside her, confirms that she was. It's a bad day to be Tulsi Gabbard," unquote.
Yep. From Democratic House Rep Ro Khanna, quote, "GOP reps are attacking me for holding town halls in their districts. Maybe if they spent more time doing their job and talking to constituents, I wouldn't have to."
Yeah.
Unquote.
This is from the AP. Quote, "Tesla sales fall by 49% in Europe. This comes against the backdrop of a 28.4% increase in sales of all battery electric cars in Europe," unquote.
They're just not buying Teslas.
They hate them. They fucking, with good reason.
Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem flew down to El Salvador to film sick torture porn in front of the imprisoned men of the notorious terrorism confinement center, Mega Prison. She was photographed in front of shirtless prisoners while wearing a $60,000 Rolex watch.
She might be the worst this week.
Mm-hmm.
She might just be the worst because she's going the extra mile of adding sadism and torture porn to, to the profile.
With her Mar-a-Lago face.
Yeah, with her botched Mar-a-Lago face and her big expensive watch. Mm-hmm. With people behind those bars who shouldn't be there, and everyone knows they shouldn't be there.
Mm-hmm.
This widely reported story is about Rumisaya, I want to say that correctly, Ozturk, a Fulbright scholar from Turkey who is studying for her doctorate at Tufts University, or I should say was studying, because a couple of nights ago, 6 masked men walked up to her in a residential neighborhood, grabbed her, and whisked her away in unmarked cars. Bystanders asked the men who they were and why they wore masks, and they said, "We're the police." Newsflash, police don't wear masks. One of the neighbors caught it on his security camera and has shared the truly chilling photos of a young woman being surrounded and bundled off into a car.
She was kidnapped.
She was kidnapped on the street of this country, having done nothing wrong.
By the government. By our government.
Under the orders of Tom Homan, Stephen Miller, and Donald Trump, all of whom should be in jail for the rest of their miserable lives.
Yep.
Like previous illegal ICE arrests of recent days, there have been no charges filed. Her lawyer quickly filed with a judge to prevent her from being moved out of state, which the judge approved. But as of today, the ICE tracking tool shows her at a privately run prison in Louisiana, not in Massachusetts, where she was taken. Her lawyers have not been allowed to speak to her. Unlike other recent arrests, Ozturk was not heavily involved in protests on her campus or elsewhere. The best guess right now as to why this woman's visa was revoked and she was arrested is that she put her name on an op-ed in her school newspaper. The op-ed had controversial statements like, quote, "We as graduate students affirm the equal dignity and humanity of all people," unquote.
Oh, that's such a controversial statement.
What a monster. Jesus would never say something like that.
Yeah, right. Democrats flipped a Pennsylvania state Senate seat in a special election in a district that Trump carried by 15 points in 2024. This district has not elected a Democrat since the 1980s.
And a bit down the road in Florida, a special election in Florida's 6th congressional district, once considered safe for Republicans, has unexpectedly tightened considerably.
Trump signed an executive order requiring proof of U.S. citizenship to register to vote in federal elections and banning states from counting ballots received after Election Day. He is not the boss of state elections.
No, he is not. I mean, he might just start...
Utterly meaningless.
He might just start throwing people in prison if they defy him.
He might,
or send him down to Venezuela. But remember, boys and girls, if approached by masked men who want to kidnap you, stand your ground.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. Pull a Kyle Rittenhouse? Is that what you're suggesting?
I'm not suggesting any such thing. I'm saying you have rights. They don't, and there's no business them taking you off the street. And in this country, the National Rifle Association has guaranteed that pretty much everyone who fears for their safety has every right to defend themselves using lethal force if necessary.
Mm-hmm.
In local news, our local senator, Tammy Duckworth, went on Fox. She didn't use lethal force. She used lethal language. She went on Fox and read the following statement. Quote, Pete Hegseth is a fucking liar. Way to go, Senator. Now we're talking. This is so clearly classified info he recklessly leaked that could have gotten our pilots killed. He needs to resign in disgrace immediately. Unquote.
Go Tammy Duckworth. She knows of which she speaks as well.
She sure as hell does.
Before we go, I mailed our quarterly tax form today.
Uh-huh.
In which we paid a lot of Social Security taxes. Those are premiums on insurance that we deserve to get, that all of us deserve to get when we retire.
Absolutely. Oh, that is the basis of the whole system.
Yep. We're all paying premiums on insurance. And the idea that anyone is thinking of touching that is unconscionable.
So that Elon Musk can have a tax cut.
So that Elon Musk can have a tax cut.
Uh-huh.
Which makes no sense because that's not going to save the money they need to get the tax cut. And they don't care anyway. They'll just do it anyway.
And they're raising
this is about creating as much suffering as possible.
Yes. Oh, that is the whole point. It is there are moochers and there are makers, there's creators, and there's people who just take. And they really do believe eradicating the people who are takers in their point of view, basically 90% of this country, is what will make America great again.
Yeah.
Either eliminating them or turning them into peons and wage slaves for the
and it's
oligarchs.
Elon Musk's toy. Yeah. All of us are Elon Musk's personal toy. I know everyone else is as furious as I am, and I'm grateful for the emails and letters and cards we get. We got a card from someone who sent us 10% of his income tax refund as a tithe.
Mm-hmm.
And anyone who wants to do something like that, make a gesture like that, we don't have any preference in terms of regular donations. If you want to use Patreon, if you want to use PayPal, whatever you want to do. But if you want to make a grand gesture like that and send us three figures out of your, 3 figures out of your 4-figure tax return, probably best to mail it to us. And we have the address. You make the check out to Professional F Podcast and you mail it to our P.O. Box 9133, Springfield, Illinois, 62791. That is in the show notes. And that means we get all of it. It doesn't go to a PayPal fee.
Right.
So thank you to the person who tithed their tax return to the Professional F Podcast. And if you decide you want to do something of that kind of gesture, either for Driftglass's 20th blogiversary or to thank us for our podcast work, probably in the mail is best.
Oh, and there's a slightly more efficient way to get it to us, even beyond check in the mail, cash in mail. Just soft.
I don't want 3 figures cash in the mail. I don't think that's safe. Every once in a while we get a $5 bill in the mail and no note.
Yeah, which is cool. Which is very cool.
Which is kind of funny. Here.
Here, take it. And no note necessary.
No return address, no nothing. Right. Just cash in an envelope.
That's right. I feel like an alderman,
Each week we post to our Facebook page and website an Internet Kitty sent in by you, the listeners. This week's Internet Kitty is Buddy. Now, Buddy is spread out on his back on the carpet in this photo, for all to see. And of course, Buddy eats freshly poured cat food, our fake sponsor. Whether you serve pet store perfection or dollar store dreck, your cat will stop you from vacuuming and demand that the food they eat is only freshly poured. Buddy is a very long-haired cat, spread out all over the carpet and telling you, no, you don't get to vacuum up my beautiful, luxurious fur off the carpet. I'm rubbing more in.
If I could just do David Attenborough's voice. Here we have the American house sloth at rest in their home environment.
We love Buddy.
Yeah, Buddy's cool.
Freshly poured, oh my Lord, it's freshly poured.
And you can visit Buddy at our Patreon page or website, and you can send your internet kitty, dog, or other pet to us at our email address, proleftpodcast@gmail.com, where you can also write to both of us. Feel free to write us. We do love hearing from you. Be aware that if you write to us at any of our addresses, we reserve the right to read your email or U.S. Postal Service. Go, postal unions. The joy is gone.
Yeah, but his stink remains.
Letter on the air unless you say otherwise. God bless and protect the U.S. Postal Service.
Absolutely. On the letter to the IRS mailing in our taxes, I believe my wife wrote a little note to them.
I did. Above my address, my return address, I wrote, keep the faith.
Yeah. I mean, we're saying nice things about postal workers and IRS agents because honest to God, and DMV people, but that's local, but honest to God, these people, when they do their job correctly, which is most of the time, they're the people that are invisibly keeping the country running smoothly. There's millions of people like that, but these folks are now in the crosshairs of the worst human being who's ever been in the White House ever.
Stephen Miller.
President
Stephen Miller. I think that's the thing we learned this week.
Yeah, President Stephen Miller.
It's not Elon Musk who's co-president. It's Stephen Miller who's running so much of the evil that's going on in this country right now.
Yeah, he just what's the most evil thing we can do? That's what we want to do.
Yeah.
And he and Elon Musk are co-presidents.
Yeah.
And Donald Trump is there to make a speech and go golfing. And
go golfing and drool. Yeah.
And drool.
He's not mentally coherent.
No. And that's what they wanted. That's what you voted for. That's what you got. Do not forget, if you can, please, don't forget our gourmet coffee guidelines. As Blue Gal reminded you, donations are deeply appreciated. So if you can afford to buy us an espresso-based beverage, do. And buy one for yourself as well. This isn't charity. This is our job. And my brain is slowly crapping out my ears, Blue Gal. So I'm going to run down the rest of this real quick. I'm losing my ability to speak at the moment. If you can spare blah 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 blah. If you can spare $5, and I do take all of this seriously, but I'm just a little dopey from all the talking and writing I've been doing. So please forgive me.
And we got COVID booster shots yesterday too.
Great. Give RFK Jr. another thing. Oh, it ruined that damn liberal podcast. Well, I guess there's some benefit to COVID shots.
We make RFK Jr. mad. That's our whole goal in life right now.
Mad. Yeah. So if you can spare $5 a month, that's what I'm trying to get to. Please spare $5 a month at patreon.com/proleftpod. And that other thing you could do that would really help us out, rate, review, and if you love this podcast, please get someone else to listen. And thank you so much for doing that.
Hey, Driftglass, how are the Internet Kitties doing this week?
Oh, Blue Gal, the Internet Kitties would also love to go on Fox News and read a statement.
I'll bet they would.
Let's think about living. Think about living. Let's think about loving. Think about loving. Let's think about the hooping and the hopping and the popping and the lovey-dovey. Let's forget about the wine and the crying, the shooting and the dying, and the fellow with the switchblade knife. Let's think about living. Let's think about life.
The Professional Left podcast is recorded under a Creative Commons license. Copyright 2024-25, GGBG Productions.